board members. My name is Caitlin O'Donoghue, and my colleagues are Kristin Williams and Jenevieve Badenhorst. We are the consultants appointed by the Group CFO to consult on facing the current issues. There are 5 key issues being faced at present. They are ordered in order of importance with reference to the impact on your company. The political risk and strategic uncertainty in Alania is of highest priority, as it has a severe legal implication due to the enriching of uranium by the Alanian government. The security crisis and legal wrangling in Nicolia is of second highest priority, as it has a critical impact on your brand name and goodwill. The third highest prioritized issue is the Nicolia fine and capital structure implications. This has a critical impact on your cash flow and equity. The last 2 issues, the shared services sentence in Dibba and the mobile operator license in Tunisia, are of lower priority, as they do not have a considerable impact on the functioning of your company at present. The ethical issues faced and their respective recommendations will be discussed at the end of each issue, using the SEMA's Code of Ethics, specifically the principle of professional behavior.
The issue relating to political risk and strategic uncertainty in Alania is of the highest priority, as the joint venture is considered your largest investment in the region. Failure to take the correct course of action immediately will have a negative impact on the monetary value of the company, as a considerable amount of income from investments and loans will be forfeited. Due to the enriching of uranium by the Alanian government, financial dealings with this country are considered a breach of international law. This causes financials to be negatively impacted at this time, as the dividends declared to you by JV Cellular are 4.2 billion Sidimbian dollars and the loan receivable of 5.8 billion Sidimbian dollars and its associated market-related interest will be forfeited. We evaluated 3 strategic choices to determine which course of action would be most beneficial. Strategy 1 will require you to consolidate and expand. Strategy 2 allows you to stay the course, and Strategy 3 will involve selling off your stake in JV Cellular and walking away. Your low risk appetite and smaller tolerance of risk had an impact on which strategy would be best implemented, resulting in the conclusion that it would be strategically advantageous to choose Strategy 2. This strategy will allow you to remain in your original position and keep your current holding of 49% in JV Cellular, with the option to sell your entire holding at the end of 2017, which is presented to you by the current 51% shareholders. Dividends have just been paid into the company, and staying on course with your current investment will result in a higher dividends receivable in future financial periods, as the market is expected to grow in the foreseeable future. This strategy does not require capital investment or losing out on the potential investment markets, thereby making it the most favorable decision. Ethical consideration. The ethical issues being faced is the infringement on the principle of professional behavior from SEMA's Code of Ethics. There is also the possible impairment of objectivity. A recommendation would be to comply with all the rules as stated by the sanctions and to take care that the powerful people in the country do not impair your objectivity.
The second highest prioritized issue is the security crisis and legal wrangling in Nicolia. This issue has a significant negative impact on your brand name and therefore goodwill, regarding the fine incurred in Nicolia due to non-compliance by the extended deadline. The reduction in the amount of the fine is causing discontent among locals, as they believe that this is a breach of their fundamental rights and are thus concerned about large corporations not being held accountable to the laws and regulations of their country. A recommendation would be to broadcast a notice stating that all unregistered SIM cards will be deactivated within a given time period, as determined by the board. Also, attach a disclaimer implicitly in stating that it is the subscriber's responsibility to register all their outstanding SIM cards until before time expires. The ethical issue is non-compliance, and the resulting infringement of fundamental rights is a violation of the SEMA Code of Ethics, specifically the principle of professional behavior. This should be addressed by actively pursuing unregistered SIM cards to ensure compliance with the governing laws and legislation.
The Nocolia fine and capital structure implications, which is of third highest priority, pertains to the material matters regarding the fine incurred in Nocolia and the required amendments that need to be made to the financial statements. The loss of 25% of your market capitalization due to the fine in Nocolia has a significant impact on the cash flow and equity of the company. As declared by the Group CFO, further reductions in the fine are negligible, and it is therefore imperative that a structured financial strategy is agreed upon so that the fine can be paid as swiftly as possible. This will aid you in retaining a good reputation not only within the business community, but also with the locals. And this will also possibly cause a share price increase after the losses due to the fine. The sale of the towers amounting to 20 billion Zimbabwean dollars has yet to be disclosed in the financial statements, and this needs to be addressed immediately. This capital will go towards the payment of the fine, but it is so important that it needs to be stated that it will not cover the full amount. Therefore, you need to liquidize your assets or search for potential investors in order to settle the remainder of the fine. The ethical issue with regards to this matter is a prolonged wait for the outcome of the fine, and this decreases your ethical reputation. As you have a moral responsibility to pay the fine, settlement thereof should be actively pursued to remedy this concern.
With regards to the Shared Services Centre in Zidimba, the potential job loss in these currently occupied countries is a cause for concern for locals of these countries, as it can have a significant impact on the economy and their current employment status. The shareholders agree that it is advantageous to move all key operational support back to Zidimba in order to increase your cash savings. These savings could then also be used to help pay the remainder of the Nocolia fine. However, it is recommended that a few key personnel be retained in these currently occupied countries to decrease the impact of withdrawing the majority of low-level transaction processing jobs. A suggestion would be to offer the choice of paid-for relocation for your current employees of MCOM to Zidimba, or help aid them in finding a job in their current country.
We will now be dealing with the renewal of mobile operator licenses in Tunisia and the consideration that you are paying to compete in the tender. This issue is prioritized last, as there is no current impact on the company. Possible favorable outcomes of winning the tender will be economic benefits of 6.2 billion Zimbabwean dollars, which will have a positive impact on your cash flow and equity standing. Two strategic options were analyzed, along with the option of not bidding at all. These two options involve acquiring 51% of CloudNet for 2.7 billion Zimbabwean dollars and bidding as a local company, or bid directly and enter as 100% MCOM Tunisia Limited, a subsidiary of the MCOM Group. It was decided that the most favorable option would be to acquire 51% of CloudNet, which would increase the chance of winning the tender and allowing you the opportunity to expand globally. Ethical consideration only needs to be given if CloudNet win the tender. You should take care to follow all the ethical principles in buying the tender.
In conclusion, the first three issues are most important because they have the most significant impact on the functioning of the company. The recommendations of these issues are as follows. Firstly, you need to retain your current holdings of 49% of JV Cellular in Alania. Secondly, you need to broadcast a notice about deactivating unregistered SIM cards in Ecolia. And lastly, you need to settle the fine incurred in Ecolia as swiftly as possible according to a structured financial strategy. The fine, as well as the sale of the towers, need to be included in the financial statements. The mobile operator licenses in Tunisia is not of importance at the moment, but they need to be considered in the future. The relevant models that were used to reach our conclusion can be found in the appendices. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present to you as a board.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Maybe just in terms of your prioritization of 1 and 2, if you can just talk us through, I would have thought 2 in terms of Elania wouldn't necessarily be the top one. 2 would be the priority. If you can just talk us through that.
For the prioritization, the political risk in our opinion, was the most severe because of the legal implications that it could have on the future functioning of your company. It could have a sort of long-term effect on your strategies and whether people actually trust your brand name in future if you deal with a government that is under violation of international law. The security crisis and legal wrangling in Ecolia was of second highest priority for us because you could have time to try and resolve the fine incurred and sort of develop a structure, in a sense, to win back goodwill and your brand reputation. So that is why we prioritized it as such.
Hi, thanks for that. So thank you very much for the ethical reminders and the ethical wash. That we appreciate that. Just in terms of once the dust settles, so I get that. We need to pay the fine, deal with the crisis, sort our balance sheet out. We've paid the fine, we've dealt the balance sheet, or at least we're getting into stability financially. What next? In terms of our operating environment and the opportunities, because we obviously approached all the time by all these very seductive opportunities, but we're not sure which one to fall into bed with. What next in terms of growing our business, or do we just stick to what we're good at?
We agreed that they must comply with sanctions in order to not get a fine in the future again, because if they would get a fine or something like that, they can get a very bad reputation from there, and the likeliness of shareholders investing in them then would not be very good. So they must be very careful with regards to legal crises. And
so your point is on a sustainable business, because I get it. So
once you have a bad name, if you get a bad name again, the chances of investors and shareholders investing again would be not very good.
Pay the fine, lock down those SIM cards, and send out the press notice, and then focus on sustainable business. Got it. Okay.
To add to what she said, you would also then try and market yourself and saying that you have accepted that you had the responsibility of a fine to pay. It has been paid, and you will ensure that no such problem will happen again. Or try your best. Sure. So.
Thanks for the presentation. I think you mentioned references to annexures. Don't you think it could have been good to demonstrate to the board through your presentation the quantitative or financial analysis that will then inform the recommendation that you're making. And if that's the case, what will be the high-level highlight? For example, you mentioned about structured financial strategy, but you did not share the details of that strategy. You mentioned about win back goodwill, but you did not share what does that entail. Will you expand on those? Thank you.
And is also related, so you can maybe just answer it together. And again, thank you, because you really brought our minds to all the qualitative issues, ethical issues, and the implications. But like Prof said, it's the quantitative aspects that we're missing. And if I look at one of your recommendations, you say to us, strategize how to pay the fine to increase MCOM's ethical reputation. And I'm thinking to myself, as a board member, we paid you to advise us. And I was hoping that you would tell us what strategy, how must we get that money? So maybe just delve a bit into that. Thanks.
MCOM is busy at the moment dealing with potential investors in order to settle the fine. If that will not cover the fine, then they can consider liquidizing their assets, or they can also look at possibly selling shares.
With regards to goodwill, in terms of doing social corporate social responsibility programs, not over the top, but to ensure that you are trying your best to remedy the situation and trying to sort of encourage the locals to actually believe in your brand name again. So in order to increase goodwill, that is...
Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for the balancing on the ethical part. I think it was really important to see that. As it was mentioned by Artie at the beginning, I think that your strategy was to stabilize first the organization and then start thinking on growth. On that lines of stabilization, how holding in Ilania fits on the stabilization, considering the political risk that Ilania offers to the company?
The question, sorry.
Yes, so basically you mentioned you want to stabilize first the company, just mitigate the risk that we have, right? So you decided to hold the shares in Ilania. How does that fit in stabilize the risk, the exposure of the risk that we have, if considering that Ilania has quite political risk exposure?
Maybe just to add to that, what was your strategic thinking around the fact that the investment in 2017 could be half of what it's now?
With regards to Strategy 1 and Strategy 3, they were high risk, and that goes out of what you want with your low risk appetite and smaller tolerance of risk. So staying the course and deciding there is like a good chance that the sanctions will be removed. Yes, so it is the best opportunity that we decided.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well done.